I was there for your last SNL
And
episode.
then you didn't ask me to be in the last Barry.
Yeah,
Again,
that
I
was
think the fans would have. I could have been the
They
late
would
night
have
guy.
been like, oh, now I get it.
Oh, it was Bill this whole time?
Oh, it was Bill.
If I didn't know Bill, Barry would still be one of my favorite shows I've ever seen.
Thank you.
It's such an accomplishment. It is really funny, but I cannot believe how fucking thrilling a show it is.
Oh, thank
and
you
that is
so
the
much,
part
man.
there. I should have been able to guess based on your love of structure and cinema, but my
Yeah.
God. And I cannot believe, I shouldn't, but you're such an exceptional director.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I would never have been able to do Barry if I hadn't been on Saturday Night Live.
I don't think any of us would be able to do anything.
Yeah, because you were able to talk to department heads and, try to produce a sketch, and I had very little confidence in that. And so working with Seth in particular, and then for me just watching late night, I'm just so happy for my friend that, one, it's just so great in its own thing, which is so exciting. His show is very much Seth, and I'm so happy. So I have a 13-year-old. I try to be cool. I'm not. But I love seeing them talking about his show because I'm like, oh, they're seeing his show the way I saw Conan or Letterman and everything. And so that's very thrilling for me.
And when my 7-year-old talks about Barry, I'm like, who's letting you watch it? I was really excited because I knew that Bill had written it and I knew it would have Bill's steady hand all over it, but it's such a perfectly written pilot and it didn't look the way I expected it to look and it wasn't the kind of story I expected Bill to tell, but I was excited from the jump.
With Seth, I remember you showed us your studio. We were at SNL, and when I first saw Seth, I just remember thinking it was perfect because he's genuinely very curious about people, and he's insanely funny. I grew up watching Letterman and then Conan and things like that. It was very satisfying to me to see my friend there doing that. But it was also interesting to see this kind of combination of that and almost nothing against those other two guys, but someone who's very genuinely super curious about it. And the guest he had on, it was still him, so I thought that was cool.
I'm a little mad that when I showed you that set, you didn't say this is a bad set and you're gonna have to change it in 6 months.
No, I just said, you're gonna be Benedette's, right?
We had a very short-lived first set. Someone said to Lauren, it looks like a sushi restaurant in Burbank.
And Lauren was like, that's what we were going for.
That's what we're going for.
And yes, and it was. It's nice going on to a talk show where it is just like this. You're just hanging with your friend. And it sounds corny, it's true. It's like being home because Kevin Miller is the segment producer a lot of times for me. And he was the writer's assistant at SNL when I was there. So when I started and then worked his way up and is just a great guy. John Lutz is there. Just seeing, Mike Shoemaker.
Do you get 8th floor butterflies at all when you go?
Yeah, just walking into 30 Rock, you do have just a wave of I have no ideas,
Right.
But I do get butterflies, yeah, it's true.
I'm now used to it as my home, but I had to go up to 17 to see somebody, and that was crazy because I never go on the 17th floor, and I thought I'm either gonna cry or throw up. But I'm not. None of it's joy. None of it's spinning around like you're in a musical.
Yeah, they've changed it, but you still know it somehow. It's the 17th floor. It still feels.
Yeah.
You're just it's traumatizing, but we can make ourselves laugh on there. Sometimes you have to go on things and it's you're having to play out.
I remember there was a time you were on where you wanted to do a bit with Vanessa. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's also
yeah.
nice to just have the shorthand of doing.
Yeah, Vanessa's down here. Let's do this bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
very
always very fun as well.
fun. Yeah.
Did you know Bill was a film nerd?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of hard
I mean,
not to the minute you meet me.
I think the first time Bill came into my office after he got hired, when he left, I had somehow a list of 12 foreign films that I had to see. He's it's the Criterion Collection friend.
Yeah, Criterion Collection.
The speed at which, I think because maybe I had posters or books, things in my office, the speed at which Bill can clock your tastes based on things you've chosen, and then tell you 8 other things that will fit in with your
it's like
taste.
that guy from the video store following you around.
Yeah. It would be like if the video store guy came to your house.
Yeah, you worked with the video store guy. You don't sit and watch movies and go, let's do this, let's do that. It's kind of instinctual. You're kind of mapping it out as you go along. But then I sit back, and it's usually when I'm mixing it, which is the last stage and we're watching it on a big screen, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of like clear that I like Jacques Tati stuff. I like Roy Anderson. I like George Miller, Mad Max. There's like all this stuff in there. Not like consciously you're trying to do it. There's something very personal about it. Like I find merging onto the freeway in Los Angeles really terrifying. And I also am very anxious when I see those motorcycles splitting lanes. I'm like, oh God, I get so anxious. So then it's like you just put that feeling into a sequence. So the new season of Barry, the bigger thing was, what if we don't have a sequence like that? Do I have the confidence now to just let the camera hold a shot, let the actors draw me in? Can I frame a shot that looks interesting and it feels real and maybe it can add to the emotion of the scene and not feel the need to get kinetic or something?
That's not a thing you get to use at SNL.
Never, yeah, never. I mean, I think it was interesting because it was like almost through kind of like osmosis where like Matt Murray and some of these writers would kind of see it, and then they started writing stuff like the Vincent Price sketch, but then we end up kind of taking over with John Mulaney, but like, stuff like that where it was like, oh, I bet this is a thing he would like doing.
I always tell people this, you have such a good taste meter. You always had that, let's try to get a little bit better on this joke.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like one of the easiest places in the world to settle for a good joke is SNL, right? Because like you're under the gun and the clock's ticking, and it's so nice when I go back and look at stuff I wrote with you. I can always see that moment where, oh right, that one we came up with. That one was like late.
That one we fought really hard for. Yeah, it is one nice things I guess about being like a movie snob or comedy snob is that you're after the show and everybody's going, good job. I'm like, no.
I believe our era, I was saying this to Andy recently, was Benevolent Snobs.
Yes, Benevolent Snobs.
Because everybody,
That's a perfect way of saying it.
Had a snobbery, but not about style. It was always about, like, I think everybody appreciated that there were different voices in that era of the show.
Yeah.
And so the only thing people were unsatisfied with was any writer not writing to the height of their talents, as opposed to, oh, I don't like that kind of sketch. Whereas you and Mulaney be in one room, and James and Kent would be in another, writing totally different sketches,
funny.
but they'd each be like people trying to like crack what they do better than anybody else.
Yeah, and that we had respect for the other people. Seth was the person that taught me that the DNA of SNL is competitive, but we don't have to be competitive with each other. I mean, the best job I ever had on SNL was being Lindsey Buckingham and those Kenan Thompson What Up With That sketches, because I just got to sit and watch Kenan dance and everything, and it was just amazing to sit and watch. Will Forte had a sketch called Potato Chip that we all went out on the floor to watch because we were like, this sketch might eat it, but whatever it is, it's going to be amazing. And we just wanted to support him. When we would do Stefon, beyond the cue cards, I would see Andy Samberg and all the guys just like watching it and just with big smiles on their faces. And so it was really supportive.
The hardest, I think, I maybe ever laughed at the table was the first What Up With That when I realized what the game was. And I think the first one of the guests was Peekaboo Street.
Peekaboo Street.
The skier, Peekaboo Street.
I say things from the table more than I say from sketches.
Yes, when we're together as a group, we talk more about what bombed.
Yeah, I saw Kristen Wiig, we were saying not too long ago, and I always say, remember she would play that Italian guy?
Oh, the best.
Never got on. And she would go, she played this Italian guy.
Like a mob boss.
Like a mob boss, and she would go, oh, yeah. And I say that all the time, where I'll be like, oh, yeah. The one I think it got on, did Thomas ever get on?
Oh, yeah, I think
Thomas.
Thomas. I remember Marika Sawyer, who's a brilliant writer as well,
amazing writer.
And who's like the most matter of fact. The world missed Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas was before its time. It's one of the greatest sketches of all time.
Yeah, Thomas.
Thomas, there's a bird. I caught a bird.
We talk about this SNL schedule and everything when you do late night. Is it a similar?
No, it's
is it
the
similar?
best.
It's the best.
It's so
but
much
like,
better.
is there any sort of grind or any of that?
No,
Because it's daily. Is it
it's so
somehow
great.
easier?
I thought it would be so much harder because again, SNL. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And so you get ingrained that you have to do everything takes 5 days and then you do it. You can't put it on a pedestal the same way. You have to know, like, we got to churn it out. We're going to take it seriously. We're going to put our best effort into it, but it is disposable. And the best thing about that was just when I learned in the telling of the jokes, I still had that update energy where, you know, an update, you get to tell maybe 10 jokes a week.
Yeah.
When you were doing it by yourself, if you're doing it with Polar, it's maybe 6 jokes a week.
Yeah.
And it's impossible then not to be tight about the jokes.
Yeah.
Whereas now, and it is that thing that people, you know, would say about Carson, you realize, oh, if a joke bombs, just talk about how it bombed.
Yeah.
The audience is happy to
Yeah.
hear it. By the way, the best thing about the jokes that bomb is usually they're the ones you like the most.
Yeah, those are the ones that are the
Yeah.
most fun, you know. But
And so
you know,
then and again, you kind of know in the room, but you do that thing. You
Yeah.
know, so Alex Bays, who was running Update
Oh,
when
he's
we
the
were there,
best.
best
Yeah.
living American joke writer.
yeah, he's so
and-
funny.
He'll sometimes write one and I'll say, we got to do it, right? And he's like, I understand if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And then it just eats shit.
Yeah.
But you
and-
know,
that's nice,
anybody goes
though.
back and watches it, they're going to say why I did it.
That's great though. That's nice to have that. Being like relaxed with that.
Being
I like-
relaxed is
yeah,
nice.
I see that when I watch you. I'm like, man, Seth is so relaxed. He's having so much fun out there.
It's
And
so
that's-
much more. I mean, SNL was a deeply fun time in my life.
Yeah.
For me, for real, I'm not just saying this because of current company, but it was fun to be next to Stefon because I didn't
Yeah,
have to
right.
do any of the heavy lifting. But like telling jokes, I never started Update thinking it would go well. And now with late night, I'm kind of pretty confident it's going to go well, and it's a great
Yeah,
feeling.
and it always goes well. And also the way you interview people, when you have your guests on, it's very much how you would speak. Like when we would have a host come, they come to your office and talk to them. And I learned from Seth, I would have hosts come in and I'd be like, you know, so here's my idea, and I was thinking if you would do this, you know, and I would just talk at them, you know, with all my ideas. And I would sit and hit, you know, he'd say, oh, we're gonna pitch something to them. Here, come in here. And I would watch you talk to the guests, and it was like, what's your genuine curiosity about this person? And you would sit and talk to people, and I was always like, oh, okay, yeah. And then they would open up, and then them opening up, they would give you things, and then that would give you ideas. Instead of like, I have this preset locked thing, and I'm gonna try to like fit you into it. Someone would come in, and then they would start talking, and you're like, oh, this person's kind of shy, or this person's this, or whatever. What if they are this then in the sketch, you know? And I got that from Seth.
It was so fun. Like the longer we had our era, the more we got people who came in and were fans of our era.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
true.
then they would come in with a natural looseness.
Totally.
You know, when you get like a Seth Rogen or a Emma Stone or
Yeah.
a Jonah Hill for the first time, those are the best.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that everyone
Just came
continues to
out.
do work that impresses me so much.
There's a picture, I think, of our second season, and it is just like a murderer's row. It's like every single person. I can't believe I was in a group with all those people. There's not a single person that didn't knock it out of the park, you know? I was very lucky.
I mean, it's an amazing class, but I think a testament to the head writer.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, I think it was it.
No.
No.
I'm cutting him off. No.
No.
Seth had such a huge effect on me and all of us. And when we sit around a table and Seth's not there, we all talk about Seth. And the thing that I also learned from Seth was how to be straight with someone and critical without being cruel. It was always like compassionate and helpful and everything. It wasn't like, get this out of here, you know? It was like, okay, here's the issue with this, and here's where I think it's not gonna work, and here's what I think you can do to make it better. I've taken that, and that's how I run the writer's room at Barry. That's how I work with actors. It came from him. And it's like, you know, we sit around, we talk about that he had a huge influence on us. I did a sketch my first season where I was Peter Falk giving a class on Star Wars sounds to Natalie Portman. So I'm Peter Falk. Okay, I'm 6'2".
This was when Mad Libs was the head writer.
This is Mad Libs was the head writer. Mad Libs came in. Mad Libs was the head writer. And so then it was Natalie Portman. And so we did the sketch, and I remember again, Seth, after the table read, was like, hey, buddy, I don't know if you need to be Peter Falk. I kind of feel like you could just be a guy giving, because you could do the Tauntaun impression, you do the Tuscan Raider, that's all really interesting, but maybe you don't need to be Peter Falk doing it, because it feels like a hat on a hat. And I was like, what does hat on a hat mean? And it's like, it just feels like a hat on a hat. I just feel like it's like one idea on top of another idea. You know, if you put a hat on top of another hat, it looks dumb. So you just want one hat on your head, right? And it's like, okay, I kind of want to try this. And I think Seth's, look was like, have your journey, you know? And, and so then we did it at Dress. It bombed horribly. And I remember sitting there, you know, kind of shell-shocked in the meeting and look over at Seth, and he was like, And I was like, I understand now. I understand now. You know.
I'm mad I didn't run to wardrobe during dress and be like, I need 2 hats.
Give me 2 hats.
I need 2 hats for the meeting.
I need 2 hats. Why? For the meeting. I just want to show Bill something. I also remember one time I said Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and you came in and you went, Bill Hader. It's pronounced Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I was like, okay. I remember when Mulaney showed up, we all were like,
Yeah, like right away.
wow, this guy is so good. And I remember you go, I love his voice and I love the specifics. And I was like, that's what it is. It's a voice and specifics. Dear diary. You know what I mean? And I've been there for 5 years.
It was.
And I go, that's what it is. It's a rhythm, it's specifics. And, finding all these terms that then help you later on.
But there's not a day, there's not a show, there's not, like if I'm ever doing stand-up, there's not a time where I do something where I don't think, I wouldn't have done that if I'd never met Bill. Or I wouldn't have done that if I'd never met Will.
Yeah.
I mean, Will more than anybody, because
Will's
anybody
just-
when you panic, you're like, Second Chance Theater is a recurring segment on late night where we allow SNL cast members to restage failed sketches. I've been on the air 9 years, and I think we've done it 6 times.
Well, you did Gingerman Franklin. As someone who worked on the show when Gingerman Franklin was around, was very excited when Will Forte would do Gingerman Franklin.
Yeah. John Solomon, his co-writer, came down and said to me, thinking about resubmitting Benjamin Franklin, and this is rough because you've been talking about how kind it was. I said something along the lines of like, I feel like it was tough sledding last time. And then John was like, okay. And then I heard John walk down the hall, and then I just heard down the hallway, and Forte opened the door and goes, tough sledding? So I felt like I owed him Second Chance Theater.
Tough sledding? What do you mean tough sledding?
We did juggling lesson. We did Want to Come With?
Oh yeah, Sudeikis'
Yeah.
juggling lesson. That was a great one.
I feel as though I need to reach back to other eras of the show because the well's a little dry.
Yeah, I would like to see, there's one on the server of Will Ferrell where he's with Gabe Kaplan.
Yeah.
People would say, hey, this is what happened was when your sketch is dying, you should watch Will Ferrell on this. And then I was in a sketch called Song for Daddy, my last season.
But that's a
ate
great sketch.
shit. Yeah, it ate shit. But and I don't really hold to the premise, I am kind of like, this is dying. But it was really funny.
Yeah.
And my favorite part is I look over at Fred, and Fred's looking at me, and the look in his eyes is like, because it was a dress rehearsal, the look in his eyes is, I know I'm not going to have to wear this wig again.
Yeah.
Because this is never happening.
They can return the wig.
We did a sketch called Fart Face that bombed horribly, and it happened to be on the most watched episode of SNL because Sarah Palin was on.
The actual Sarah Palin.
The actual Sarah Palin was on the show, and then they were like, this is going to be the most watched episode in history. And we did it at Dress, and it bombed. It played like a Pinter play. Like I could hear myself walking around while I was doing the sketch. I was like, this is not good. And somehow it went from the bottom of the order to like right after Update. At Update, Sarah Palin came on, and Amy Poehler did a rap, and it like blew the roof off the place.
It was as crazy as I'd ever
It
heard.
blew the roof off the place.
A very pregnant, 9-month
pregnant
Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler destroys, and we're dressed in our fart face gear, just about to go out to do the sketch, just about to like ice the room. And we walk out, and Josh Brolin, who was hosting, looked up at the audience, and he goes, well, fellas, let's shut these fuckers up. And it was like the end of Wild Bunch. It was like, all right, here we go, and it was like, let's do this. My favorite review that I read about that was Bill Hader and Will Forte and Josh Brolin were going to do a sketch, and then they looked in the trash can and found a sketch called Fart Face and said, wait, let's do this sketch instead. People hated that sketch. Before air, Lorne Michaels gives notes, and he goes, I saw Boom Shadow on Fart Face. We were just like...
I remember Lauren would give, so he'd be under the bleachers during Dress, and he would give notes like that but he would make a real, like, he would get whoever was in charge of that department to come in, and then he'd be like, there's a Boom Shadow, and they'd go, okay, we can fix that. And if you'd written the sketch, you wanted the attention on the sketch and the writing, and I remember once, like, late in my time there, it's actually a cold open that's playing, hardest thing to do. And again, we're all his kids who want dad's approval.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the flag looked like it was coming out of like Fred's head. And he goes, the flag, it looks like it's coming out of Fred's head. And I went, we can't move it. We can't move it between Dress and air. So So it's like,
That's awesome.
it's just like somebody's got to pick it up and move
Yeah,
it. Look
just
at these
move it.
jokes. There's all these
Yeah.
beautiful jokes.
People were dying laughing. Documentary now started because Seth had written Ian Rubbish History of Punk thing. That was my third to last show. And I remember we went and did that. My memory was at the after party, you and I talking and being like, this could be a show.
My memory was you coming to my office. I give full credit to you and saying, that's always the kind of show I'd want to do. Like a show where you do that. It's the opposite of late night, which by a day after it airs has like half the value. And then, whereas documentary now, it's so fun to make a show that I don't think will age at all because it was already so outdated.
Yeah, it was
It's, like,
so
not,
outdated.
like-
It was the perfect example of peak TV because it's like, how is this a show?
Doc now gonna have a tougher sled to the sale today.
Yes. They hated the title. And I think Lauren tried to, on behalf of the network, go, you guys got to change the title. And I said, what if we call it Lauren Michaels Presents Documentary Now? And which he did not appreciate.
I remember saying, I'm like, no, but it's not. He's like, documentary now. And I would always be like, with an exclamation point.
And with an exclamation point. That's what he's saying. I'm like, no. It's being
funny
shout
thing
at
is-
you. That's
the
what's
funny thing is
interesting.
these people who make this are very excited about the
Yeah,
documentaries.
that's what's funny about it. There's an exclamation point.
I mean, I should say, they fought us on the title and nothing else.
That's true.
IFC.
They were amazing.
Amazing. And the fact that we, right out the gate, wanted to do one in black and white. Then the next year we wanted to do one in Spanish. And I think they were always like,
Spanish. Yeah, but I will say the one most people talk to me about is the Grey Gardens one that we did, Sandy Passage. And everybody always says to me, you and Fred, just the way you guys are like improvising and stuff. And I'm like, that is all written by Seth Meyers. That is word for word Seth Meyers. We did not improvise a word of that.
there's a moment where Fred just starts singing that song, Pitter Patter.
I didn't know he was gonna do that. I go, what's the song? He's like he just immediately like he's been sitting on that all day, just waiting for someone to ask him to sing Pitter Patter. My first day on set, it was me doing the flag dance from Sandy Passage, and I just remember the look on the crew going, what the fuck are we making? It's so impressive what he does on Closer Look, and that's kind of where I get my news. It's true. Again, it's that curiosity and the sharpness of it. I mean, the reason I always would go into Seth's office wasn't just to learn about comedy, but also just kind of understand what's happening in the world, because I was very uninterested. You know, I was just, when I got to SNL, I was just movies, you know, but hanging out with Seth, everybody talks about how witty he is and the satire and everything, but it all comes from like a very, very deep intellect. But there was a way to be that way that wasn't smug or anything. You admit things that you didn't know. Closer Look to me always came from like kind of a genuine trying to figure it out. Like I relate to Seth when I watch those, where it's like we're all just trying to understand what's happening right now, you know? And it's really great.
Because you watch so many movies, I feel like you're never trying to steal anything. You're trying to borrow from and maybe not improve's not the right word, but do it a different way.
Well, it's like when you learn a new thing, you kind of like follow the directions, you know? If you learn a recipe or something, you're really following what you're supposed to do. So there's like a rigidity to it, you know? But the longer you do it and the more you get to practice it, you don't need that. You have the confidence just to try things. And then once you start doing that, it is a thing where you're less reading the directions and you're engaging with what's the actors are doing or even the weather. I mean, that sounds weird, but it is true. You get out there and you're like, wow, it's really overcast. Oh man, we should use this somehow. You know, where before I'm like, I have my shots, I have this, we're not allowed to acknowledge this, you know. And getting to work with people like Carl Hersey, the DP, and you know, the editors, Ali and Frankie, who are just brilliant, and production designer, Eric. I mean, it feels like SNL where it's very much like a team effort. You do have this feeling where I would have it at SNL all the time too, where you would work really hard on an idea and then you would see all these people busting their ass for your idea. And I was always very moved by that. That day of shooting that motorcycle chase, I remember driving at 4 a.m. and seeing that they had closed off half the Pasadena freeway for this idea. It's moving, you know? You're just like, wow, these guys are really doing it. I can't, like, don't fuck this up, you know? It's very sweet.
My most resonant SNL memories was your last SNL because
we
it was
started crying.
Stefon's wedding, and we were backstage holding hands and crying.
So we were holding hands. So we had
'Cause
to
we were
come
supposed
out
to
like
run out,
like we got married, and we're holding hands, and I'm like this, And so Jenna, our stage manager, goes, "It's been really great, Bill." And I was like, "Mm-hmm." And then he squeezed my hand, like, and I hear him go, and I'm like, "Oh man, oh come on!" And then we go out there, and if you watch it, you hear me go like, "I love you, man." I just completely fall apart. And I went outside and crying, and like Wig was there, and like, I mean, we were all.
It's also the
was a
best
mess.
part about having dear friends that you meet at a sketch comedy show, because that was a really genuine moment of male friendship, and you were dressed as Stefon
I was
wearing
dressed
a veil.
I was dressed as this party guy with a veil.
I also was cognizant of the fact that just a few months later, I was going to get married for real.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, oh, I better cry on the day. If I'm crying with Bill, if my fictional
Right.
wedding to Stefon.
Like, well, you cried to Stefon. Not seeing any tears there. That's really funny.
Yeah.
No, but it's true. It's like, I don't know. That was very sweet. And then yeah, I guess the show coming to an end. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like leaving SNL. You know, where you go through an experience, and then everything has to have a beginning, middle, and end, and you see what you've learned from that experience, and it has a bittersweet thing to it. But I'll be honest, when SNL ended, I was pretty happy to not have to do the grind anymore, and I had a big young family and things like that. But and like Barry, what I missed was the people.
Because like at SNL, no matter how long you do it, right, you still have that pressure of like coming up with things, and each week you start over with a blank slate. So you have that. But then with Barry, you have the pressure of nailing the landing.
Right.
You have more control, obviously, over it. With each successive season of Barry, the fact that it kept getting better and the stakes kept getting higher, I couldn't even imagine what it was like.
Well, what's interesting is like with SNL, like we would do a Stefon, and the audience would tell you like if it was working or not. And with Barry, I'm like in a room basically by myself, and it's just like you're trying to entertain yourself, and you're just very much concerned about the characters and working with your collaborators and going, does that make sense? The writers, the direct, the actors and everything. So it is very contained, and then it's kind of a thing of like once it's out, you go, you just like, I don't want to think about sticking the landing. It's like you're never, as you're doing it, going, oh gosh, we're going to stick the landing. Whereas like at SNL, you would feel it. So you were more cognizant of like, oh man, we got to like add some new moves to this. We're playing to the audience. Where with Barry, it was kind of more just for each other in a room. So it's like a totally different feeling when it's out and people are coming up to me. It's very surreal, because it's just like, oh, it's just in my room, and like me and my friends have been talking about it for a year, and now people know about it.
The longer, I always thought the great thing about being a writer when your cast was there is it was a group of people that were there for a while, and the longer they were there, the better you got at writing for them.
Yeah.
Did that get easier the better you got to know that fucking
100%.
incredible cast?
Yeah, and then you start writing for them. It's just like SNL. You just start writing for their strengths, and you just go like, oh, I get it. Sarah Goldberg was really good at monologues, so it's like, okay, let's give her like a super long monologue, or now let's try this. Or Anthony Kerrigan just had this effervescent thing, and so this season it's like, let's see a darker side of that character. Giving them challenges, I mean, I do say that a lot, and you kind of taught me this when I was at SNL. Is like I would write these sketches. I remember doing these things called Vinny Vedecci. I would pitch it to you, and you go, great, cool. What does the host get to do? Because it's like, as a performer, you want to write something that you would want to perform, And I kind of learned that from you. So when I'm working in the writer's room on Barry, or when I'm talking to the writers, I would say, I say it all the time, like, okay, if I'm playing Hank, I want to make sure that I'm not repeating the same moves every year. I learned so much from you. He also taught me a very good lesson about joke writing, which I was not very good at. He goes, you tend to go A, J, Z. You need to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I was like, all right. And it's like, it's good. It's not bad, but just A, B, C, D, E, just. And then I remember that last Stefon, I got like really over, like in my head about the video where you saw at the wedding the things that he had talked about. Like you saw DJ Baby Bok Choy and all these things. In my head about it, I was like, should we have like chyrons underneath it saying who they are? And you went, don't do the audience's homework, man. Come on. And I was like, that is a phrase that I use all the time. And I was like, let's not do the audience's homework, guys, with the surreal moments of Barry and everything. No, that was all from you.
We did book DJ Baby Bok Choy for my wedding, and that helped me cry.
Spin.